Hello, everybody. Happy July 15th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we have another college football player, this time the quarterback for URI, and a former Windsor High School player himself, Jahkari Grant. Man, it's great to be able to have you on, and especially to have a quarterback, because I've had wide receivers, I've had secondary guys. Your phone falls, so how about that? But you know what? Now I've got a quarterback. Man, it's great to have you on the show.
It's great to be on the show. I've seen some episodes, and I'm just glad to be here.
You know, I think before we get into your time with Windsor, just kind of, I always ask this about different players and coaches, kind of what was your journey through your particular sport or your coaching sport? For you, what was your journey through football?
My journey through football, you want to go back to when I first started playing?
Way to the beginning.
Well, when I first started playing, I was interested in being a receiver or a running back because I wanted to have the ball in my hands. I wanted to run with the ball. But when I first started playing, me and I'm sure you're familiar with Tyler Coyle, UConn standout. He's at Purdue now. Me and him were the quarterbacks, and he was better than me at quarterback at the time. And I didn't want to play quarterback because he was obviously starting. I couldn't even take the snap from under center. I would fumble every time. My coach was insisting on me playing quarterback. And one day, I was talking to my mom. She was like, just stick with it. I was like, Mom, I don't want to do it. She said, let's just talk to the coach. And she's thinking I'm going to, like, coach, we could talk about it. Let's work something out, whatever. And after practice, I'd have tears running down my face. And I just said, Coach, I don't want to play quarterback. Put me somewhere else. And my mom was shocked. She's like, don't say that, because she knew quarterback was like a standout position, or it had high regards to it. But me, I just want to score touchdowns and have fun. I'm not thinking about playing quarterback. So I stuck with it. I ended up getting good. But later on, I went down like through middle school is when I started developing my throwing. And then going into high school, I was a smaller kid. I was like 5'3", like 100 pounds. And all my friends, they were like 5'8", 5'9", 140. They were growing faster than I was. So my parents and I decided that I would reclassify and go to St. Thomas More, repeat my 8th grade year. And they had me go there from 8th grade to till 10th grade, till the middle of 10th grade. So I went there, and it was rough. It was rough because I wasn't used to being at a boarding school, all-boys boarding school. And when I was in Windsor playing Pee Wee football, we always won. We were undefeated almost every year. We went to the championship every year. And St. Thomas More didn't have that type of culture. It was like people were playing football. Well, some people were playing football because you have to play a sport at private school, at least 2 sports. So some people were out there just because, and I'm out there because I love the game. Me and like a few other people were out there because they love the game, because we recruited post-grads and other people went to the school because they like football. But it was rough. And we didn't win too many games. I think in my 3 seasons at St. Thomas More, we won 3 games. But I remember my first game getting in, I was in 8th grade, and we were down. We were losing to Westminster School. I believe we were losing by 28 points. So we came back, and we ended up winning the game. That was my first high school experience playing quarterback. And then the very next week, I started over a post-grad.
Oh, wow.
And I went out there and I threw 3 touchdowns for like 200 yards as an 8th grader playing against older guys, grown men, 19-year-olds. So I thought I was the GOAT. I thought I was the best there ever was. But I ended up breaking my hand that game, so I had to sit out the rest of the year. And then the next year I was a starter for good throughout the season. And then I think it was like week 5 or 6, I ended up breaking my collarbone. So that's 2 seasons that just down the drain. And then my sophomore year, I'm going to the season. I don't care what it takes. And I end up, I get a hip injury where like my ligament pulls like a piece of bone off the hip. So I basically had like a broken hip. But I was so stuck on not sitting out another season, I just played through it to the point where I have damage in my hip to this day. Like, it's not the same, but I still can play. And that was the year we were 0-8, I believe. And that was the year I said, Ma, I think I need to come back to Windsor. And that was the year Windsor won the championship, 2014 against Notre Dame West Haven. I was like, I'm supposed to be on that team. Like, that's supposed to be my team. I'm supposed to have that ring. So since then, I I think I called Coach Fleet or I texted him and I said, I'm coming back to Windsor. And I was excited. He was excited. All my friends that I grew up with, Tyler Coyle, Jordan Knight, Isaiah Huff, all those guys, they were excited to have me back. And it was just ready to roll from there. And then you want me to go into my junior year as well?
You know,
Junior, senior year?
we'll get to that in one second. I think just, a
Okay.
couple, big time points that you mentioned. First, your mom about how much that she pushed you to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
A lot of times parents will, be like, hey, if you want to do this, if you want to do that. But
Mhm.
it sounds like your mom was a big influence on you and and maybe she saw that Patrick Mahomes was going to get 500 million down the road. But I mean, hey, kudos to your mom for trusting and believing that you had the talent to play the position even before you knew that.
Yeah, she not just my mother, my father as well. He built a tire in our backyard once he found out I was playing quarterback, and he would encourage me to go out there every day and just throw through the tire. And yeah, because my parents, they saw that. I guess they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They saw that I was a natural leader, and they felt like people would follow me if I was the quarterback and I would be able to lead a team. And I guess I just had to trust her and what she saw in me, and it ended up benefiting me in the future.
A lot of times too, hearing about how much you struggled and not so much you struggling, but with the injuries and with the lack of wins that happened at St. Thomas More, it kind of in a lot of ways, it puts in perspective how much you love the game of football, because it's great when everybody is, when everything is hunky dory, everyone's winning, people are getting all these accolades, but when you're at the bottom of the bottom, when you're the Cleveland Browns per se, as far as not getting wins, it really puts a testament as far as, do I love this game? Am I willing to go through the growing pains and the pains of not winning? And I think for you, you've probably have gone through more than a lot of people, because you not only went through the lack of winning, but you also dealt with injuries to a point where you mentioned about your hip, where you said, F it, I want to go play. I'm going to play through this. I don't care.
Yeah, I did. It was really hard because, especially like the losing part, because I'm probably the worst loser, the most sore loser you could find. I cried after every game, and I'm in the locker room with kids who are just focused on what they're gonna do after the game. They don't even care that we lost. So that was hard, and it was also hard because I would come home on the weekends to watch my boys at Windsor play. I see them, Tyler scoring 3 touchdowns, Benny scoring 3 touchdowns. They're winning games. They're getting all state. And I'm just like, I'm happy for them, obviously, but I'm like, I'm supposed to be there too. Like, I'm good enough to get those same accolades, score touchdowns, and do all these great things too. So it was rough, but my love for the game, it kept me going, and it led me in the right direction.
Now, your first practice when you got back to Windsor, like, did you feel it when you got to practice or to the school? Like, when did things become like, when did it hit you like, okay, wow, I'm back?
Um, well, it hit me when I first got to Windsor and I was in the guidance counselor's office and I saw my friends walking by and they were excited to see me, like because they weren't sure if I was coming back. I just talked about it, but when they saw me actually in the school, like with a backpack and stuff, they knew it was real. And when I first got to Windsor, it was like this was right after they had won the championship. Like they won it in November. I was there in like after Christmas break in December or January. So it was right after. So expectations were really high. And I didn't really tell anybody this except for my mother, but I kind of felt a lot of pressure to I have to succeed after John Nolan was a good quarterback there. He led them to a championship and they had Quinn before that. So they have a standard of having good quarterback play there. So I knew I had to be on my stuff and I got there to be ready to play. So it was cool. But I know it got real for me, really real when I first passing league. It was at the Bubble in East Windsor. We were playing I think Capital Prep. We were playing them and Coach Fleet was on me, as he always was, but he was on me. And this was my first time being coached by him. I wasn't used to that because at the same time, it's more, they weren't on me as much because I was the only quarterback. So they didn't like, I don't know. They just weren't on me as hard as Coach Fleet was. But he was on me. He was yelling at me, pulling me off the field to the side and talking after every single drive about what I see, what I'm doing out there. And it was rough. At one point, I'm like, man, can I even, is this for me? Can I do this? But I had to stay confident and trust my guys, and I pushed through and ended up being successful.
Do you think that maybe going to school in January kind of gave you time to get acclimated as far as with with your friends, but with the team and kind of just get things back, allow yourself to get your feet wet, I guess, back at, Windsor again? Because if you came back and let's say, I don't know, July or August, right? And you have to jump
Mm-hmm.
right into it. I almost feel like you maybe would have been rushed. And the reason why I say that is because you felt pressure. So if you have to jump right into it and you got to compete, it's like, oh crap, man, like I got pressure. I'm trying to get back to school again, all this emotion. But because you came back in January, it gave you some time to allow yourself to like just get yourself into it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a conversation I definitely had with my parents too. Because at first, I wanted to finish my year at St. Thomas More because I built a lot of relationships there, and I didn't want to just up and leave those guys. And my parents, they were thinking like, you have to do what's best for you now. So they sent me there early, and I had to learn a whole new playbook. And the way they coached me at Windsor, I had to think the game differently than I did at St. Thomas More, especially with like reading defenses and stuff. Because at St. Thomas More, I was more reading routes, like progressions, instead of at Windsor, they would say on each play, I'm reading a defender more so than reading a route based on what this defender does. If he plays this receiver this way, you throw to this receiver. He plays this receiver this way, you throw to this receiver. So it definitely helped being there and learning the offense through the 7-on-7s. And that was my first time having spring ball at Windsor. We had spring ball in the spring game. So having the time to learn throughout the summer and the spring definitely helped going into that fall.
It almost seems like you kind of were going through like in baseball, you go from single A, double A, triple A to the majors. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like with you, you went from, let's say, low A with Thomas More, just trying to get yourself, your feet wet again, as I mentioned, with being quarterback. And then you go to Windsor, which is a little bit more established at the time. The winning is there, the coaches being able to go through the progressions, as you mentioned, and reading a defense and kind of going to school and being a quarterback. You were kind of in some ways going to that next level, and then it was a test to you and to see, okay, can I read a defense, can I listen to what the coaches are telling me?
Yeah, definitely. It was just like at St. Thomas More, we still played like good competition. Like we were playing Cheshire Academy when they had Tariq Black, CJ Holmes. We played Suffield Academy when they had Chris Wilkins and Bryce McAllister there. So we were playing good competition. It was just the what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't have high expectations at St. Thomas More. And at Windsor, it's just different. Like they expect to win. Like it's just the standard. Like we're gonna win. We're gonna go undefeated, and we're going to the playoffs. That's just the expectation there. So it was definitely a big change when I got to Windsor, and I had to get used to it again because I was used to it when I was younger, and then I left and I came back and I had to get acclimated with it again. It's serious at Windsor.
Was there a point during practice where things started to feel a little bit more comfortable? Maybe it was during summer practice. Was it during conditioning? When did when did things start to become normal for you as far as a player, but also a teammate as well?
Well, things started becoming normal, and I started gaining high confidence when in the summer we were doing passing leagues. Like we had passing tournament, passing tournament. We went to the New Canaan passing league tournament where we're playing good teams. Like we're playing teams from New Jersey, playing teams from New York, teams from like it's a big tournament. We're playing good teams, and I was shredding those teams up. We almost we almost won the championship. We made it to the game before, and we ended up losing on a tip interception. I still am a little upset at Jason Pinnock for this. He tipped the ball up to safety, and we lost on that play. But I gained a lot of confidence then because we beat the team that ended up winning the championship in that tournament. So I was like, yeah, we're gonna be a good team, and I'm gonna be fine. Like I'm cool after that. And I was confident after that going into our home 7-on-7 tournament. We beat every team. We won our championship. And going into the season, I was like, I have a whole bit of offense. I have good players around me. And now I'm ready to rock. We're ready to go forward with this.
Was there any competition as far as the quarterback position between you and another player going into that season when you came back to Windsor?
Um, they're they not like not really. There were younger guys there, like
Okay.
sophomores. that I knew like they weren't going to play over me, but they were talented players like Julian Jackson. He came through the year after. He threw 2,000 yards the year I left, so he was a good player. So they had good players, but they were just younger. So I knew I was going to come in and like start.
No, that's good. I think, even though you knew like in the back of your mind, okay, the cards are going to be in my favor, you still kind of had to think also too, there's talent behind me. I mean, you just said when you left, the player after you threw for 2,000 yards. I mean, there's talent
Yeah,
all over Windsor, and it's like
definitely.
if you take one day off, you could lose your spot.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, 100%. And Coach Fleet didn't let me get lax. Even when I was doing great my senior year, throwing for 3,000 yards, he still was on me harder than ever. He never let me get too comfortable. I always had to play hard. And even if like I wasn't doing good my junior year, he would sometimes put Tyler Coyle back there and run Wildcat and say like, "Yo, we don't really need you to be out there to be successful. So you better get on your stuff."
The coach, and I've always respected what Windsor does because it seems like they find the right mold, kind of like what the Patriots do. They work with what they
Mm-hmm.
have, but they also challenge players, just like what you said. They would put Tyler and say, "Hey, we can do Wildcat. We don't need like not that we don't need you, but we can win
Yeah,
without you." And I
yeah,
think
basically.
that's I think that's something that a lot of high schools are not able to do because they don't have the talent to be able to kind of challenge the players because there's nobody backing them up. But at
Yeah,
Windsor, which we've mentioned many times, sometimes the fourth guy on the depth chart would start for 95% of the other high schools because there's just so much depth at Windsor.
definitely. There is, like, if you think about it, Tyler was our starting receiver. He was our leading receiver that year, and Jason Pinnock was he was a backup receiver. And the next year, he had a better season than Tyler had at receiver. He had 1,000 yards,
Yep.
more like 60 catches, like 15 touchdowns. So he had a better season, and he didn't even start. He didn't even play offense my junior year, really. So if you just think about that, and you see like there's people that were behind that could have very well started that year.
I think with Windsor and because of all the talent, I mean, a question I have to ask you is, did you ever kind of sit back? And I'm sure you never were like, like, holy cow, like, look at all this talent. But, did you ever think to yourself, like, I'm playing with a lot of Division I, Division II, Division III, but high octane athletes on this team?
Yeah, like I literally Tyler lived like down the street from me. Isaiah Huff lived around the corner from me. Like I would play with these guys every day outside in the summer. So I knew what type of athletes we had. So I was never really like marveling over them. I was just appreciating that they were on my team, really. And I didn't have to play against them. So it was definitely fun playing with those guys. And I wish I could still play with them to this day, really.
Was there a game in particular, either your junior or your senior year, that has stuck with you even now? Maybe it was a big game, maybe there was a big play, or maybe there was a big win for the team. Anything in particular?
Um, the game that stuck with me. I think my junior year against Middletown is a game that stuck with me because it was the CCC championship game, and it was supposed to be a big game, and I was like kind of nervous because I heard that Middletown. I never played against them, so I didn't know, but I heard they were a good team every year. So I was expecting it to be like a tough game going in, and I remember we prepared really hard for that game, and we ended up going out there and destroying them. It was like 52-6. I remember I threw 7 passes and I completed 6 of them and like 5 of them were touchdowns. So that was a big game for me and just the team in general. Like we barely let them score. That's when they had Tyshawn James there. They still had good players on the team, and it was a big game.
Yeah, and Tyshawn,
And even the next year against Middletown stuck with me too because I had an ear infection and I had like a chest cold going into that game, and it was 19 degrees.
oh wow.
And we were losing that game, and we ended up coming back and winning. Jerry Woodard, he took a fumble back for a touchdown and like saved us. So those 2 Middletown games definitely stuck with me.
Yeah, and Tyshawn James, Dathan Hickey, some guys I've had that are NFL caliber players, and you know of them. You
Mm-hmm.
played against Dathan Hickey. You're
Yeah,
friends with Tyshawn James, and I think knowing that there's so much talent in Connecticut, I think people forget that just because they don't go to a high, like even Yale, some people kind of poo-poo on a little bit. Just because they
Yeah,
don't go to a Power Five school or they don't go to this like Alabama or Clemson or whatever, that there's
yeah,
not talent. Like, no, there is. People just need to realize that.
yeah, definitely. We're a talented state that just gets overlooked. Like going into when I was on the camp circuit in high school, and we would coaches, their beginning of the camp, they would go over their recruiting areas, and there would be some schools that didn't even have a Connecticut like a coach that recruited Connecticut. Like it was just they would go like up to like the New Jersey area, and then they would be done. Like they would recruit like New Jersey and down. So now going into these new years, like 2020, 2021, I see coaches are expanding their recruiting boards we're coming up to Connecticut now. We're coming up to Rhode Island and the smaller states up here. And that's definitely helping. And I think some kids from Windsor have actually helped that. Like Jason, he told me he got this Pitts offer because he reached out to them, sent them his film, and then they offered him. And now the next year they offered Marquise Wilson because they started coming up to Windsor now and seeing what we have, and now they're recruiting all of Connecticut. So it definitely makes a difference when you have some talented players, and it sends up more colleges to this area.
And it helps too when you have social media, Twitter, Instagram, and all
Mm-hmm.
that, where you can send
Definitely.
off your film. You can say, hey, and I've always told people, and I've been to a lot of, meetings that coaches have had me come to speak with their players about social media. And the first thing I tell them, social media could be your best friend or your worst enemy. Pick
Mm-hmm.
which one. You can't go in between. And by best friend, it can help get your brand out if you're like you mentioned, if you're a player that wants to get looked at by coaches, if you're a broadcaster that wants to get his content out there, if you're
Yep.
a musician that wants to get his music out, there's so many avenues to go. And I think because where we are in 2020 and because of the pandemic, everybody's on their phones. So what's the first thing that they go to if they can't see the player face to face? They go right to the tape. They want to find where that
Yep.
tape is.
Definitely, definitely. Social media, yeah, if you use it properly, it could help you in so many ways. You could get your brand out there. You could send your film to literally any school, any coach you want to.
Yep.
But also, if you use it the wrong way, you could get your scholarship taken. You're retweeting bad stuff. You're tweeting dumb stuff, racial slurs, and just anything bad. Like it could just ruin everything that you have going.
What did Herm Edwards say a couple years ago? Think before you press send.
Yep.
One of the many
They need
things
to,
he said.
they need to teach that to every high school and college kid out there.
My favorite thing that he said, and this was maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, so I'm probably showing my age, but he was talking to a bunch of rookies right before the start of the NFL season, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Don't get the Mr. T starter kit, like the chains and the bling and all that." I don't know why, but I thought that was funny.
That is funny because that's some kids they're into the jewelry, so that's the first thing they give them once they get some money.
Yeah, you know, I don't think they see the bigger picture. They just see the
Mm-hmm.
small micro rather than the macro.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Now you mentioned the camps, and I really want to hit on that as well because I have you for a couple more minutes, and I do appreciate you coming on. When you were
Yeah.
being recruited by URI and other schools as well, did they view you as a quarterback, or did they see you as wanting to, did they try to have you switch positions?
URI saw me 100% as a quarterback. That's why I think I fell in love with the school. Coach Will Fleming had faith in me from the start. But during my recruiting journey, there were schools who definitely saw me as an athlete, and they had me work out at other positions. Like I remember, I went to Stony Brook's camp, and I'm a quarterback, and they had me do a one-on-one workout with their receivers coach and some of their receivers because they saw me as an athlete. I did pretty well, I think, but they didn't see me as a quarterback, so I didn't want to go to their school. And I remember I went to UConn's camp twice. The first time I was a quarterback, I went there as a quarterback. And the second time, they had me work out as a defensive back with the DB's coach because they wanted to see me as a DB. And like, it was a couple other schools that did that. And I just wasn't interested in playing anything else coming out of high school.
You know, it's great that you kind of stuck to your guns and you said, "Hey, I want to play quarterback. This is a position for me," because,
Hmm.
I think, and even Lamar Jackson, surprisingly enough, and I'm at fault for that because I thought he should have been a wide receiver coming out of Louisville. But, I
Hmm.
think there's a certain stigma with athletic quarterbacks that people see as runners first rather than throwers. And I think for guys like you, for Lamar Jackson, and there's even others because now with the way that the college game is starting to slowly, Kyler Murray's another one too, that,
Yeah.
the college game is starting to slowly seep into the NFL game and the concepts and the spread and all that. I think it's
Yeah.
great for guys like yourself and others who can be successful, but also show like, hey, I don't need to play another position. I can play quarterback. Just believe in me and just give me a shot.
Yeah, definitely. Because it really doesn't make sense to me why they would not want an athletic quarterback. He touches the ball every play.
Yep.
And if he, especially if like guys like Lamar Jackson, the most athletic person on the field, touches the ball every play, like that just sounds like it just has nothing but positive benefits to me. And like I don't know, it sitting in the pocket sometimes is more dangerous than being able to avoid the people in the pocket and get out the pocket to me. So I feel like the athletic quarterback is becoming more prominent, definitely in today's game of football.
To add to that too, I mean, you think about the rule changes, you think about there's less practices. I mean, there's so many things that go into it where now
Mhm.
you can't even touch the quarterback before it's a 15-yard penalty. Or if you hit the
Yeah,
quarterback the wrong way, it's a fine, you're suspended. So I think, and I was always I always believed having, pocket quarterbacks was the way to go. But now seeing Lamar Jackson succeed, seeing Patrick Mahomes do what he can do outside the pocket, Kyler Murray, who I did not believe in, and now I'm like, holy cow, you made the Cardinals look so much better than what they are, man. I mean,
yeah, he had a great rookie year.
yeah, like I think the way because sports is very cyclical. It goes through cycles. There was the pocket thing for a long time with, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Philip Rivers, Eli Manning, but now Big Ben. But now we're starting to become more of a spread going outside the pocket. We mentioned a bunch of guys who can. Russell Wilson's another one too. So I think the way that the game is starting to go, some people could, put their foot down and say, "Oh, I don't like this. I don't like how it's so much about athletes." But to be honest with you, and I'm sure you love it, as a fan and as somebody who loves the game of football, it's fun to watch seeing guys avoid
Yeah,
tackles and kind of dance. It takes a
yeah.
special talent.
It's definitely more exciting to watch when you see a guy who can make guys miss, run down the field, and make plays, like create plays. That makes the game exciting to me. But if it's just a guy who's sitting in the pocket all day, just throwing like passes and throwing short passes, and deep passes are exciting to watch too sometimes. But I like when I can see a guy make guys miss and create plays downfield. That's why I like watching Patrick Mahomes play because he creates so many plays outside the pocket. It's ridiculous the stuff that he does. And as far as like the college game coming into like the pro game, like I feel like since RPOs are becoming more popular, it's a lot easier to run RPOs with the athletic quarterback because when you're reading the RPO, you want to make the right read every time, but sometimes you're not. And what are you going to do after you make the wrong read and the pass is covered and you already pulled the ball? You're going to have to make something happen. So having an athletic quarterback to be able to do that is just a benefit.
It helped that the RPO game was shown at full length in the Super Bowl when the Eagles were
Mm-hmm.
against the Patriots, and the fact that
Yeah.
it was so successful, especially with a quarterback in Nick Foles, who is a flash in the pan at best, it
Mm-hmm.
showed the rest of the NFL, which is a copycat league, and that goes for anything. That if this
Yeah.
can work here, oh, then we should take it too, because maybe we can copy that and try to win as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a copycat league. Nick Foles, he did a great job. It hurts to say because I'm a Patriots fan, but he did a great job in that Super Bowl. He dropped
Hey,
some dimes.
you see more wins than me, man. I'm a
Ooh.
Cowboys fan, so.
Oh, you guys just picked up one of my teammates, Aaron Parker.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, receiver. Yeah, you guys just picked him up. Yeah, he's gonna be a good player for you guys. Mark my words.
Okay, I'm counting on that. Hopefully, because I wasn't a fan of the CD Lamb pick. I felt like we could have gone defense first. Didn't feel like we.
Yeah, yeah. You got yeah. But CeeDee Lamb and another young receiver and Aaron could be a benefit to Dak. Help, and you guys still have Amari Cooper. I'm correct,
Cooper,
right?
Gallup,
Yeah,
they'll have
yeah. They
Zeke.
could learn
Yeah.
from those guys and become great players. Yeah.
Now, are you still in contact with him?
Yeah, I talk to Aaron often.
Really?
Yeah, I talked to him actually the other day. He was in Rhode Island, like training and stuff, but I think he went back out to Texas.
So if he has any dirt about what's going on in Dallas, tell him to tell you, and then you could tell me because I'd love to hear.
I'll definitely relay the message for you.
Jahkari, it's great. I could talk to you forever, man. It's great to be able to have a Connecticut talent on like yourself and who's doing
I appreciate it.
I just have one more question for you. I know that you haven't played a lot URI, but do you feel like that maybe the reason why you haven't is that God has a plan and that there's going to be a time where you are going to play, and then when you are, you will be as prepared as possible?
I definitely believe God has a plan because I went into my freshman year, I redshirted because I wasn't ready at the time. I can admit that. But then as I learned the offense better and I became more confident, I'm 100% confident that from my redshirt freshman year to now, I could have stepped out on that field and I could have been just as successful as the starting quarterback that was out there. So learning the offense, sitting back, I know that I'll be ready when my number is called. And I'm pretty sure my number will be called this year.
I believe that you will get a shot, and I think when you do get that shot, you'll show everybody not to be, rude and be like, "Yo, I'll show you." But I think that you're going to prove people like, "Hey, I've been sitting here patient.
I should have been out there.
Exactly. Working hard, just doing what you've been doing your whole life, which is having that blue collar attitude, which is what your family instilled in you and showed you in a very respectful way. And now that you had the opportunity, just like in the Eminem song that's escaping me, you worked.
Yeah. I definitely did get a little discouraged it was really this season that I felt like I was ready, like I was 100% ready, and I didn't get out there this year that much, and it was a little discouraging. But I had to keep the confidence in myself. I had to remember that I had to think mentally that I'm the best out there, no matter what my position on the depth chart is, no matter what anybody says about me, no matter what the crowd, coaches, players, anything. I have to know that I'm the best inside my head. So that's what this keeps me going, keeps me working hard, keeps me training with deaf people, keeps me lifting weights, and it just keeps me motivated to keep working on my craft.
Keep that mindset, Jahkari. I'm wishing you nothing but the best of luck. And whenever you make that start and you throw for whatever touchdowns, run for 4, throw for 4, or do both, come back on the show, man. I'd love to be able to have you back. It was a lot of fun having you.
I appreciate it. It was fun being on here.
I'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. And I'm on a journey to find them all.